Welcome to the San Francisco Public Library Commission meeting for February 6, 2025. The time is 4:30. I'm Margot Schaub, and I serve as a Library Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in person in the main library Crett Auditorium, and members of the public can observe the meeting using the Zoom system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling 1-877-853-5247 and entering Zoom ID 825-964-0827. Members of the public who are attending the meeting in person may provide public comment for up to 2 minutes for each discussion or action item on the agenda. Library commissioners in attendance are Vice President Pete Huang, Commissioners Ono, Lomax Giraduzzi, Lopez, and Bolander.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to the February 6th, 2025 meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. We're pleased to welcome those here with us in the Crett Auditorium and our virtual audience over Zoom. We have a full meeting ahead, and we will first start with the Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement. The area now known as San Francisco is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the original peoples of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place. We recognize that we benefit from living, working, and learning on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. All the materials for this meeting are available on the Library Commission webpage or in the back of the Crett Auditorium. Today we have a total of 5 agenda items. We begin with item number 1, general public comment. At this time, members of the public attending in the Crett may address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. The public can address the Commission on today's agenda items when that item is called. General public comment is now open here in Crett Auditorium. Please.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. Speaking as an anonymous citizen, of course, and stop the hate, stop the ignorance. Don't give money to the Friends of the Library. Don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. I wish I could explain how appalled I am. I've known for some time that this Library Commission has been on a progressive decline of disrepute and depravity. No one knew it was going to fall this low. I'm the guy who destroyed the Library Commission. When I first attended Library Commission meetings, there were a main library meeting once a month and 6 committee meetings. That gradually got reduced to 2 committee meetings and then 2 meetings a month, and finally just this. In those days, we had library commissioners like Barbara Rosenberg, Charlotte Swig, Nancy Pelosi, Edward Callanan, Edward Branston, Ernest J. Gaines. Can you imagine a library commission with Ernest J. Gaines on it? I can't imagine it anymore, and I was there. The whole reason that we have a library commission is to provide a forum and transparency for the public so that the public can be heard and so the public can be informed. How did you completely abandon that role so completely? I would challenge you. Reverse course now. You know, your claim to elitism has completely disappeared. Just be open in public. Respond to the public when they speak, respect what they have to say, and hear them out for their full 3 minutes, which I will address again very shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there further public comment from attendees in the Crett?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users, 2004 at yahoo.com and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. You have taken the anti-democratic and participation-squelching new public comment time, limited to 2 minutes, starting last meeting and unfortunately continuing today. I take this as a high compliment to the value and at times impact that public comments, in particular that we have made, in this library. We have contributed a range of information and suggestions and urging to the library with regard to library services, policy, and legislation, for example, on eliminating late fines and other fees, reviews of privacy and record confidentiality, which you do not do, although recommended by your privacy audit when it happened quite a long time ago. We've commented on and had impact on not free and not equal access to materials and programs, to name a few. On my way over here, the city librarian passed me in the public space and said, our number one fan. And I'm glad to say that maybe he meant that a little bit in irony, but progressive librarian Sandy Berman, who many people know for years of concern on progressive issues, when he was given the lifetime membership in the ALA, wrote a commentary in which he said he wanted to thank people who cared enough about the library to fight for it, and he named myself and the previous speaker, among others, including Nicholas.
Thank you very much. Further public comment?
Hello, Library Commissioners. I'm Michael Vincent Tinel Mercanti from Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. I just want to say we're proud to be the library's partner, and seeing the documentary a few weekends ago, Free for All, which we'll hear about later in the agenda, really puts it into perspective, and we're really, it's really I'm really happy that documentary is going to be seen by more people. A couple of things, updates. First, our Stong Breakfast is coming up. The theme is branching out. This is an annual gathering to honor our people who've chosen to make a legacy gift to Friends of the Library, to honor them and to spark new joy and excitement about the library and the work you're doing. This year's theme is branching out, which will profile the amazing work the branches are doing. Next is our Library Laureates Gala. The theme is Spring Awakening, a tribute to San Francisco libraries in bloom. This is an amazing time for SF libraries, and the work is just beginning. So we are so excited to hear back from authors in the literary community, our community of supporters that have been, that are excited to collaborate and be a part of this program. Next, the e-commerce store, SFPLstore.com, has been a great success. We're starting to see merch all over the city. It's really great. I was wearing a sweater the other day, and somebody came up to me and started talking about the library, and that kind of joy and excitement in the community is what we hope to spark. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Further public comment? Seeing that there's no further public comment here in Correct, general public comment is now closed. We now turn to item number 2, which is discussion and possible action to approve the January Commission meeting minutes. We'll first open public comment before our Commission discussion on this item. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific agenda item. Public comment is now open in the Correct.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. And speaking, of course, as an anonymous citizen, stop the hate, stop the ignorance. Don't give money to the Friends of the Library. Don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. And this is a further example of your disrepute and depravity. It says here under the first general item, general public comment, that the executive director of the Library Users Association said the headline in the Mercury News is Democracy in Peril. No, the headline was Democracy in Peril, says Biden, referring to the president of the United States at that time. And then the underscores the toxicity of the social media was a reference to something was said by Francis Haug. It's not your job to scramble things so that the public sounds nonsensical You can abbreviate them if you want, but giving them an entirely different point is completely depraved. And it doesn't say on here that the public was limited to 2 minutes. And it doesn't say anything about how you arrived at that. There's no mention in the December minutes, which there would have to be to make that legal. And if so, then we know it's not legal. But you've not documented that change because you don't want to signal its illegality. You know, if you don't respect responsibility, then education's not of value. And if you don't respect education, research is not of value. And there's nothing that could be a more direct attack on the public library than that.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. The previous speaker is quite correct. I said the headline was that the president said this, not that they said it or somebody else said it or that I said it. That's important. The then president, President Biden, said that. And I tied that into further public comment, including that the social media has been understood to be toxic and, in fact, addictive by other people, but in particular, not just by somebody saying it, who knows who, but the Surgeon General of the United States. And that Surgeon General said that there should be steps taken by those in public spaces with responsibility to do something about that to minimize or eliminate the harm. With respect to my comments on the minutes, I once again said that you've systematically excluded our comments on the toxicity of social media, and as described in particular by the Surgeon General and others. And the reason I'm telling you that is because you should not be touting uncritically the use of the internet and social media, both of which have had alarms raised by our Surgeon General, among others. I'm not just talking in general about public affairs. I'm talking specifically about what the library is doing and should not do, which is expose people by uncritically touting all kinds of programming and use of the internet and especially social media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any further public comment here in Correct on item number 2?
Thanks, Margot. I just wanted to provide some feedback from our last session, commissioners, management, which was I really appreciated Commissioner Mall asking questions, because when she did that, when she asked questions about the reserve fund, it provides us, the audience, access to information we might otherwise not have, because this is not a give and take, right? We're hearing your conversations among yourself. We can pose a question, and obviously some you're going to respond to and others you're not. But I think when she was so candid about not knowing, it was very informative for us as an audience to understand what the general fund meant and what, that we have 20 million in it. So I thought it was very worthwhile. And so my feedback to you all is when you can have that kind of give and take conversations, it really gives us access to the bigger issues, and then we can provide a more meaningful comment that may be substantive or, powerful, et cetera. So I just wanted to say that. I got 39 seconds left. The other comment I wanted to say was, I know in discussing the piece about the budget, I just think it was a real missed opportunity that we didn't make safety a strategic priority. I know that we learned in other sessions that when we look at the budget, it's really within the constraints of the subjects. And we were in a meeting today where, we're expected to provide security for everything around dogs, et cetera. So I think that's something to consider going forward about this institution.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Seeing that there's none, public comment is now closed, and we now move to commission discussion and action on item number 2. Commissioners, any comments on item number 2, or otherwise would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the January commission meeting?
If there's no comments, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes of January 16th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Lomax-Giarduzzi and a second from Commissioner Lopez to approve the minutes.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ona.
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax-Giarduzzi.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. We now turn to item number 3, discussion and possible action on FY 26 and 27 budget. I now turn the meeting over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, Vice President Wong, and good evening, Library Commissioners. This evening, Library staff appreciate the opportunity to present the FY 26-27 budget for your consideration and potential action. In the previous 2 budget discussions, our CFO, Mike Fernandez, has shared how the city's finances are heavily impacted by a historic budget deficit driven by a slow economic recovery and weak revenue growth that is getting outpaced by increasing cost, particularly on the labor front. Despite our good fortune of stable funding via the Library Preservation Fund, this budget cycle illustrates our department is not immune to these macro forces in our local economy. In crafting the library's FY 26-27 budget this cycle, our team has endeavored to take a highly conservative approach, consistent with the budget instructions from the Mayor's Budget Office, while maintaining our core service lines and prioritizing access in accordance with the Library Preservation Fund charter mandate. Our CFO, Mike Fernandez, is back this evening to deliver this presentation. Mike?
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, Vice President Wong, Commissioners. I am pleased to present to you the culmination of a lot of collective work on the part of the entire team. I want to give a special thank you to Maureen and Christine Murdoch, our budget manager, who does a lot of work behind the scenes getting us to this point. So this afternoon, I'm going to go over where we are in our budget process, the current budget environment, reviewing where we start each budget process, the guiding principles to which we use to prioritize the budget proposal for your consideration, and asking for your approval, as well as next steps. I do also want to note that we did have to make a revision to the slides at the last minute because we found that while the budget values had been correct, the variances originally provided were incorrect due to a glitch in some calculations there in the spreadsheet. So I wanted to make sure that you all had the most correct information possible for our discussion today. And with that, I want to give a big thank you to Margot for facilitating those changes. I know that makes your job harder, so thank you. Move on. All right. So here's the familiar budget calendar. These slides, as you can see by the yellow arrows, the budget development kicked off the beginning at this fall. We started discussing the budget proposals in December. The green arrow is where we are now, asking for your approval, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But first, let's go ahead and quickly review the budget environment I touched on a few weeks ago. The city is facing a nearly $900 million deficit over the next 2 years. The city is projecting a deficit as a result of rising costs outpacing revenue growth. As I noted in January, the Library Preservation Fund outlook has worsened since the last budget was approved last cycle by around $2.3 million, but is expected to increase by $5.6 million next year, or roughly 3%. We have reviewed the mayor's budget instructions these past few meetings, but as a reminder, we were instructed to follow the priorities you can see here on the screen or on the sheet in front of you, as well as I wanted to note that general fund departments were required to make 15% ongoing cuts, while we here at the library are just required to balance to our budget to our own available revenue. And again, the mayor is not entertaining any new positions at this time. So if you recall, back in December, we did review the base budgets, but I'll give you a quick refresher. We budget each year for 2 years, and the standard practice is to refer to year 1 as budget year, and year 2 in any cycle is budget year plus 1. So you'll hear me using those phrases throughout the presentation. Every year, we start with what was approved in the last budget cycle as budget year plus 1. So for example, fiscal year 26 from last cycle would be this year's budget year. And then the controller goes ahead and adjusts that number based on new information that we've gained since the budget was last approved by the board in July. This is what becomes the base budget for budget year in any given cycle. These changes are typically minor. It could be that the amount of the retirement contribution may have changed by a couple percent. This year, the change in our base expenditure was quite minor, only going down about $15,000, unlike our base revenue, which went down by $2.3 million. They take that budget and then essentially copy it over to the next year and apply any known or assumed cost changes. This is usually things like cost of living increases or stripping out the capital budgets, which then becomes our base in fiscal year 27. As you can see, the capital does change from 7.1 in fiscal year 26 on the table on the right-hand side to 0 in fiscal year 27. The base budget is our starting point each budget cycle. The budget proposal that we present to you then adjusts those base budgets. And I do want to just say for the record that budget is really a reflection of priorities, and our number one priority continues to be our staff here at SFPL. 67% of our base budget in fiscal year 26, for example, is by far our biggest budget category. The next, should be a surprise to no one, is our collections. This is in line with other urban libraries our size. The services of other departments is a range of items from keeping our lights on and being able to respond to the community via email or phone, or to fixing and making minor upgrades to our buildings. We do contract out some services, which has a pretty broad range. It goes from programming support to technology services, licenses, those sort of things. And the capital requests vary each budget cycle based on the projected need over a 2-year period. We always revisit capital investments in year 2 of any proposed budget in a subsequent cycle as additional project information becomes available over the intervening months. And then last, I'd like to mention reserves. These are funds that we set aside each cycle as a source for budget proposals, rising costs, and prepare for weakening revenues. In addition to the mayor's priorities, we view our budget through the Vision 2030 lens in developing and evaluating the proposals I'm going to present to you here in a minute. And here you can see largely the same proposals that we presented to the commission and the public on January 16th. One update we did make was in the collections budget, we received a $70,000, we're investing $70,000 in operating cost increases to continue the Career Pathways e-resources that the state library stopped funding this fiscal year. When reviewing the proposals, keep in mind that these are in addition to the $1.6 million in non-labor operating cost increase we discussed last time. And I'll give you a quick review on how to read this table. The proposals are grouped by our current budget priorities on the left. To the right of the proposals, you'll see an indication as to whether the proposal was as an ongoing proposal or one-time increase. To the right of the proposal, next we had the base budgets for the first year, fiscal year 26. Next on the right is the amount of the proposal would increase in fiscal year 26. And the next column is the amount in addition we would invest in fiscal year 27. And that final column is the total investment this cycle. Note, ongoing investments made in fiscal year 26 would then be added to fiscal year 27's base budget. So you won't see it in fiscal year 27, but that amount is essentially doubled in that last column. Since there are no other changes to these budget proposals from the last meeting, I'll highlight just a few of them for you now, but I'm happy to take questions on them during the commission discussion. So first up, as under the resource provider budget priority, we did find ways to provide a comparable level of service to what we are providing today and achieve some cost efficiencies. And we had to but we did have to adjust that since last time to ensure that we continued the career pathways. For under the continuous capital, we do budget that annually with a CPI increase. So that goes from 1.8 million in fiscal year 26 to 1.9 in fiscal year 27. We do have a safety project here at the main, which we're going to fund with an additional $2.5 million. And as well, we are investing another $3 million towards the mission renovation project due to ongoing construction cost increases. So to sum up, we are proposing to invest $5.8 million in fiscal year 26, almost all of which would be one-time investments. In fiscal year 27, we're proposing another $2.4 million. Again, almost nearly all of that is one-time investments. Capital costs make up the bulk of the operational efficiency and/or enhancement category, which is nearly 80% or a little over 80% of the total investments contemplated at this time. Now, these are only estimated budgets. These will change somewhat between now and when we submit on February 21st, as more information becomes available. And then again, as we go through the mayor's phase as well as the board's phase. Now, in prior years, I would have jumped to reviewing the different options of proposed budgets for your consideration. However, this year is a little bit different. The pace of the operating cost increases coupled with our relatively flat revenues doesn't provide the kind of investment opportunities available to us in prior years. In response, the staff have crafted this budget proposal that makes the necessary investments while taking the responsibility of stewardship the voters of San Francisco have entrusted to us. Other than recognizing the operating cost increases that we must absorb, we propose a budget that minimizes new ongoing investments. We have identified some efficiencies that preserve our current service level while obtaining some budget relief. And like operating costs, there are unavoidable capital cost increases as well as equipment that needs to be replaced based on its service life. So let's go ahead and dive into the proposal in a little bit greater detail. For discussion, it will be helpful to know how to read this table. So from left to right, the sources and uses category is followed by this year's approved budget. The fiscal year 26 base budget we discussed earlier is the next column. The fourth column is the proposed budget in fiscal year 26. This is the budget year budget that would be approved by your action this evening. The next column is the change from current year's budget the next year's budget would represent. The sixth column is the change from base budget to the proposed budget. The seventh column is the proposed budget in fiscal year 27, and like the fourth column, this would be the budget. This is the budget that would be approved by your action this evening. That eighth and final column is the year-over-year change from the budget proposed for the budget year of this cycle, or budget year plus one. For those of you who downloaded an earlier version of this presentation, again, we did find an error with this table. The budget columns were correct. However, the variance columns were not calculating correctly, and those have now been corrected. So what you see before you should be the correct information. And so I did want to especially touch on reserves again. Last year, we started the year with about $460,000 in reserves for fiscal year 26 that would normally have been available to fund this cycle's budget year budget proposals. However, primarily because of the change in revenue, we experienced in our base budget a draw. We went from a $460,000 reserve to a $2.04 million draw on the fund balance. With the capital needs and additional operating cost increases, that number goes from $2.04 million in the base to $9.31 million in fiscal year 26. While this is a larger number than we were expecting, using fund balance to cover what is primarily one-time investments is what the fund balance is primarily for. In restraining this year's budget to mostly one-time investments, that leaves us with a much healthier balance of $2.89 million going into fiscal year 27 future proposals to absorb cost increases in our cost of doing business and to hedge against future decreases in revenue. This is an opportune time to remind us all that we do make these investments with the voters' expectations in mind. This budget will allow us to operate as required by the mandate that guarantees our funding. More than that, though, we are also taking advantage of this opportunity to examine our current offerings and procedures and ensure that we can meet not just our legal obligations, but as well as the commitments we laid out in Vision 2030 sustainably. So looking ahead, in summary, the proposal we have put together for you to consider this evening would result in an overall budget of $194.47 million in fiscal year 26 and $190.97 million in fiscal year 27. As part of your consideration, you should know that we are continuing to explore further opportunities for efficiencies and that we will be continuing to update this budget as we get more information on interagency costs before we submit to the mayor and controller. This is no different than in any other cycle, but we wanted to make sure that you had that awareness for your consideration this evening. And as always, you're able to provide your own recommendation. After we make our decision here, we must submit a budget to the controller and the mayor by February 21st of this year. Thank you very much for your time and attention this evening, and I'll be here for your questions.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, City Librarian Lambert and CFO Mike Fernandez for the presentation. Lots to digest, but we're going to jump to public comment before the commission discusses this particular item. As a reminder, please do limit your public comment to this specific agenda item, and public comment is now open in Correct.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner. Speaking as an anonymous citizen, and stop the hate, stop the ignorance, don't give money to the Friends of the Library, don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. I'm sure that I've at least conveyed the sense of how disruptive and discombobulating it is to try to limit myself on the fly to 2 minutes. Since your ignoration of us seems to be categorical, I don't know why that should be true. Let me slow down and just make a very short couple of points. Number one, it's very valuable, as a previous speaker said, to hear the discussion among the commissioners themselves. It would be even more valuable if that discussion were reflected in the minutes. Obviously, all of this has to be informed to provide a forum for people to understand.
I'm going to pause your time really quick. The intention is to keep the public comments related to this particular agenda item. I'm going to restart your time and give you another shot to give public comment on this item. Thank you.
That's outrageous. Are you implying that I'm not talking on that point? The implication is that I've departed from your instructions and that you've had to chastise me, which is completely untrue. You know, that's defamatory. Absolutely outrageous. The point is, thank you very much. The point is that this is all very difficult to understand. In the old days, the minutes included all the reports that you used to get. Now, the reports themselves are nothing but these, fantasy PowerPoint presentations, which are not specific enough and your comments themselves are not reflected in the minutes with specificity enough for us to be able to understand the minutes. Now, the first point that ought to be challenging to you is how does this conform to your newly drafted strategic plan? The strategic plan should be implemented as you proceed by your policies and priorities in the budget itself. Now, the first thing that jumps out at us is that not only is the largest drop in collections, but there's something called collections efficiencies, which, recognizing my history on this subject, has got to be a euphemism for something dastardly and anti-intellectual, for lack of a better word. Let's have an explanation of what collections in collections efficiencies actually means. And let's have a full understanding of what the library preservation funds really is. As you learned at the last meeting, it's not a trust fund, it's an ongoing budget which presents yearly challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further public comment on this item?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. It would have been useful to let us know how somebody is supposed to know whether what they have in hand is the revised version or not. Is it labeled in any particular way? Is there a difference between what that is and what was sent to the public previously? How about telling us when the change was made so that we know if we got something in the mail at a certain date, it couldn't have been the revised version. Neither is there any specific detail about what has been changed for those who've studied it carefully. There are huge numbers of questions that you've just simply not answered in this budget. Collection efficiencies, page 16. You've got quite a large sum there. What's that about? On page 14, realign collection budget. What does that mean? Cut books, as you seem to want to do, especially in proportion to electronic materials? What's community catalyzer, page 15? Cultural amplifier, digital strategies, thoughtful navigator, and then resource provider is a tiny 1.5%. This is on the investments supposed explanation. 1 million, as I recall, more than 1 million was to be given for book giveaways. I don't necessarily categorically oppose that, but we have more and more less equity with access. I'd like to access between print and electronic. I'd like to see equal or more access to books than electronic. Often there's more access to electronic and no access to print even. I'd like to see a privacy review taken seriously as our outside world becomes more and more ugly with problems related to privacy.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Okay, thank you. First, Mike, thank you for the presentation, always so erudite and always so informed. So thank you. Questions from labor. Have you taken into consideration other locations? Because I see it says Main Library Safety Enhancement Project, Mission Library Renovation Project, etc. Have you taken into account other locations, other work sites? We know, for example, that the Brandon Street, there's a second part of the moves occurring there, and in terms of the allocation there, has management done an analysis of these other work locations? We know we have 27 branches, as well as the other locations. So we're just going to ask that question and hope or request a meaningful dialogue on on that piece of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing that there's none, public comment on this item is now closed. We're going to move on to commission discussion and action on item number 3. First, a collective thank you to CFO Mike Fernandez, our COO Maureen Singleton for her work, and then Chrissy Murdoch on your team as well as everyone involved. I know this is a very involved process, especially this year, given the challenging environment. There's probably a lot to consider and a lot of deliberation behind the scenes. So just a collective sort of sense of gratitude for getting us to this point. This is just always a lot of work every year, but especially this year. So thank you very much. Commissioners, any comments, questions, discussion items on what we've heard from Mike this evening?
Hi.
Commissioner Ono.
Hi, thank you, Mike, for your presentation. I just wanted to remind myself, the proposed new investment summary that you had on page 15 here, that ties to our new strategic plan with these new titles.
Correct.
The only one I didn't really see is literacy champion, but it's kind of all taken into all together with this summary, correct?
Correct. The summary is only the new investments. So it doesn't take into account where we invest annually into each one of those categories. And then we also, as I had mentioned last time in January, we included a category for the operational efficiency and or enhancement as sort of the support services to capture some of those other investments.
Okay. And at one point, I think Labor was asking about safety, but we do have a lot of new investment on page 14 of the safety enhancement projects. And that's to the tune of 2.5.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lomax-Garrett-Utzi.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate the simplicity of your narrative and preparing us and breaking things down. I think that was very thoughtful of you to do so. One thing I just want to point out, I'm not even sure it's a question, but it's just really a comment, is the budgets, the mayor's budget instructions and the priorities that are set forth on page 11, which is kind of an introductory slide, and just the alignment of this budget proposal, specifically looking at, obviously, the maintaining core city services, public safety, street conditions, but I'm going down to the last one, which was opportunities to improve operation efficiency and service delivery and reporting. And it seems to me that you, along with Maureen and others, with Michael's leadership, have kept a fidelity to that in trying to be in alignment with the priorities set forth by the mayor's office. And so I just want to acknowledge that there is a sense, at least for me as a commissioner, and I missed the last meeting, but I was here this December meeting. I appreciate that alignment in this specifically. One thing I will ask is that, and I think I'm just having a little bit of problems in understanding. Talk to me a little bit about that first line, the resource provider, the realign the collections budget, and it has a little asterisk, and down there it has a note. Help me understand that just a little bit more. I know it was in your narrative, but I'm making sure I have my head around what does that realign in the collections budget mean?
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for those kind words and the question. The realignment in the collections budget, we discussed a little bit in a lot more detail in January. In looking at everything we're doing within the collections, we looked at where we could potentially do things a little bit more efficiently, but at the same time, really preserving our entire service level. And I really want to thank the staff and Shelley, especially for her leadership Shelley Cocking, in her leadership to really try to find opportunities there to where are we doing things that we could do a little bit more efficiently, or where there are opportunities for, we've been spending money on things that were maybe more one-time in nature that we don't necessarily have coming up. So on the physical collection side, for example, for audio and visuals, in the past, we were spending a lot of money keeping a lot of titles current. But as you can imagine, now that the kind of the world has departed from DVDs, we're not buying those anymore. We're moving over to streaming. So those on the, at least on the physical collection side, we're not having to put out the same outlay year over year. So that was an opportunity to pull back and say, hey, look, we're not really spending money there anymore. So we don't really need to keep that budget in there. We are also looking at being a little bit maybe stricter about things that are not circulating. So we talked a little bit about that last month. So on the physical collection side, those were some of the key areas we looked at, as well as there were some opportunities where we were typically buying the more expensive version, the hardcover of a lot of items that maybe we didn't need to. Like, given the current budget environment, can we still provide the same titles, the same counts, keep the circulation the same, but maybe we can reduce costs, at least in the short and medium term. And so looking at those opportunities on the physical collection side, we were able to find some efficiencies there. On the e-collection side, we looked at, again, continuing that same level of service, but we noticed that there were some databases that, again, as the world has changed, we had been keeping up a lot of databases for people to use for research purposes that they're not really going to anymore. And so when we're looking at, is this cost effective? Does it make sense? Is this really providing a service or a unique service that they really cannot get anywhere else? In that evaluation, they looked at, okay, do we need to keep so much investment there? Or can we pull that back a little bit since it's not really being utilized anymore in the same way? And so in looking at the totality of that, what was a $21 million budget, we could say, hey, on any given year, we can cut that back $1 million, but still maintain where we are right now.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate, just the ways in which Shelley, who I see is in the office, keeps her finger on the pulse of both the maintaining integrity, but also a pragmatism in operating within the times that we have. So I appreciate that as well.
I'll echo those comments really quickly. I think, obviously with the macro climate, I think obviously it's harder, right? I think everyone would be happier if there's more money to go around, jobs would be easier, et cetera. But the silver lining in all of this is that it does, the opportunity to kind of figure out a new muscle for us as an organization seems important. And I'm encouraged by this budget because it shows that we can find and sort of continue to challenge ourselves to find ways to kind of just do things more efficiently and find ways to do more with less. It's a new muscle, right? And I think it is something that maybe in the last 5 years we haven't done as much, but now we can. And as an organization, it's just a way to sort of clean things up a little bit and tighten the ship a little bit, which is great. In keeping with that, I trust that between this discussion with the budget and today, I'm sure there's been lots of ongoing ideas for how to continue to look for ways to improve and find similar efficiencies, like the ones that you were talking about in the collections budget. Could you give me a sense of where those conversations are? Are there initial, is there a set of ideas that you and the rest of the team have in terms of ways to do things more efficiently that didn't exactly land in the budget, but we could potentially see 1, 2, 3 years down the road in future budgets?
Yeah, I would say we're continuously evaluating those. We know the budget's not done. This is the first of several phases. And so we are continuing to look through our entire operation to see where we can find further efficiencies. We're still contemplating a lot of conceptual ideas, especially, looking for additional savings on the capital side, as well as looking at some of the investments that we were planning to make that maybe we've built into the base budget. That generally speaking, we don't necessarily need to continue to do. But at this point, given where the revenue is and where our confidence is at this point, we didn't feel like we needed to take any of those steps right now, but we are continuing to evaluate those options. There are some, we continue to look in areas that we've had to make investments in as well. In technology and things like that. There's an ongoing citywide effort also, just so you all are aware. There's an ongoing citywide effort to evaluate all of our tech practices and try to either use all the department's leverage and buying power to leverage better deals essentially out of those contracts, which is a new concerted effort for the city overall, as all the departments are grappling with the same situation. And then also looking at, now that, our license agreements have tiered so much in the past 5-ish years, where can we be more efficient as a total within the library and as a total city family to kind of streamline those activities and streamline those licenses and find more efficiencies there. So we're actively pursuing those, but we haven't gotten to the point where we're ready to execute on any of those yet. We're still in the discussion phase, but we're continuing to have those discussions.
Can I just add one other thing or two other things that we're continuing to look at, and especially with the announcement I'm going to be making later about the appointment of our CIO, we are taking a deep look at is all the software we have, looking at options for efficiency there. What do we not need? What's a software that we're not optimizing? So to consider utilizing a different module there rather than considering new software purchases. So there is a deep dive that the IT team is doing on that. And then also centrally, along with the IT work that the city's doing, there's the Capital Planning Committee is also looking at citywide programs around roofing, around exterior work, that we think with the collective buying power there, that ultimately we could save money on the capital side, which is important since those costs are ever rising, and then we have the looming concern with tariffs. So,
Yes.
yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you so much. I always find this part of the commission like an awakening, especially because of this budget, which is not one of my favorite things. However, I do have a question under the operation, efficiency, and enhancement. On the first line, you have a one-time allocation that has increased from the base budget. And then I'm a visual learner, so can you give us some examples as to the maintenance, some of the, library capital improvement projects? Are we talking about things that break down and we have to repair or fix? Or are we talking about, other items?
Thank you, Dr. Lopez, for that question. Yeah, it's a combination of the two. Generally speaking, we have the way I in prior roles would have also considered a funding source like this as a state of good repair. So it will a little bit run the gamut from if there's an emergency repair or an urgent repair that we need to do based on something either breaking down or weather or something else that kind of compels a quick repair or something of that nature. And it's something that the library can either perform or our partners at Public Works can perform. These are generally kind of the sources that we use. That could be here at the main, it could be at branches. It's been used for, roof and waterproofing and that sort of thing in the past as well. But it could be, should a system not be up to par, like HVAC system not be up to par, something like that. If it's generally like where the system is, was running right along that edge and it just needs a little tweak here and there. That's generally what that's for, as opposed to when we have a major project or we're doing the envelope of a branch, we bring those to you separately as their own projects. So that's more or less how we evaluate between the two. And so this funding is there. This is generally what we spend in a given year on kind of those keeping the capital up to date, or keeping our assets up to date.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bolander.
Thanks, Mike, for the presentation. I was curious about, it's on slide 11, Library Preservation Fund estimates. Last month, was the estimate the same for FY26 and FY27, or did it get reduced down?
Should be the same.
Could be the same. Okay. How confident are you in the 26, 27? Like, I know you're not a betting man, thankfully, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it shows it going up in 27. I mean, gut, is that going to be, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like it went down 2.3, which is not the end of the world, but still, we didn't anticipate that.
Well, it went down 2.3 from where they thought it was going to be, right, in a year ago. So that was the extra year out a year ago. That is still a year-over-year increase, I believe, or it's roughly flat, like right around there. So it's not $2.3 million from 25 down, right? It's from the estimated 26.
Right.
So, you know, obviously I cannot tell the future, or else I'd probably have a different job. But that said, given what we're seeing so far in the early kind of property tax returns and what we're seeing as far as, you know, how the general fund is doing so far, the 27 number seems reasonable.
Okay.
And, you know, just to note also, the other thing that kind of goes along with it, the controller's office, when they set up these numbers, are typically conservative. They typically take a very conservative route because they never want to give us the authority to spend more than they really think we're going to collect,
Right.
because that creates a whole host of nightmares for them. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot. So they typically try to avoid that scenario in any case. So typically what they are going to provide us in any given year is typically on the conservative side. Obviously that didn't happen in 26, but that was the outer year. So the outer year number is always a little bit less certain,
Right.
because we get to come back and revisit it.
Right.
But that's generally how they operate. So given that, and given what we're seeing so far, it's not an unreasonable number.
Okay. And so we've got 26 at 194 and 27 at 190, so a 4 million reduction. Because we're
Yes.
not putting anything into capital and
Correct.
no reserve, right? If that changes, we can adjust things, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. I mean,
Yeah.
numbers don't lie, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's called math for a reason, right?
Right. Well, another way to ask that first question is kind of like I believe it was similar to a lot of our discussion from last month, which is if you don't believe the controller's office numbers or believe that there's like a wide range that's going to happen, and like what should we be doing now in the case that it comes in much lower or like a chunk lower than initially expected? And I believe we heard last time there's a lot of scenario planning going on, and a lot of like, all right, if this happens, we're looking at XYZ. If this happens, we're looking at ABC. So I think, frankly, I feel like that's the most we can do at this point, right? Like just at least looking ahead a little bit. I mean, it's not our job to predict the numbers, unfortunately, but like,
Yeah,
at
I
least
mean,
being prepared for the
it's not our
scenario.
job, but we have to do risk mitigation, right? So we have to look at the probability of an event happening in the future, albeit hard to predict, and then figure out from a rational, reasonable perspective, if we make a decision today, okay, so are we within the window, right?
Right.
It sounds like, not putting words in Mike's mouth, that we're in the window.
Yeah, and that's also especially want to point out that we're keeping, you know, close to $3 million in reserve for the outer year for that exact reason. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Any further comments or discussion from the group? We do have an action on the table. We do have to send a budget to the mayor's office at some point. So I'm wondering if we have a motion on the table from the commission to approve the budget as stated for FY26 and 27.
I would like to make that motion.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bolander and a second from Commissioner Ono to approve the FY26 and FY27 budget.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax Giarduzzi.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Yeah. Great. We now turn to item number 4, which is discussion on the city librarian's report. I now turn this meeting over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, Vice President Wong. We have a number of reports this evening, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter. Jess Ouyang is our Acting Youth Development Coordinator. They will be presenting on the library's Tween Winter Reading Program.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. I will be talking about Tween Winter Read. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Tween Winter Read is the San Francisco Public Library's winter reading program for tweens and teens. We're continuing this program from previous years, and Tween Winter Read begins December 1st and ends January 10th. It overlaps with winter break, and it's designed to support positive experiences and associations with the library for our adolescent patrons. Tween Winter Read is designed to support participants' interest-led engagement with the library, and participants are encouraged to select their own reading materials and library programs they wish to attend. We want to support our adolescent patrons discovering the library as a place they want to be, full of relevant books and resources and programs for them and for their interests. Tween Winter Read encourages direct feedback directly in the program itself. As you can see on the slide, we want to encourage participant feedback. They get to rate their experiences, and they also get to draw and write reviews. Okay. Okay, so this year for Tween Winter Read, we continued our partnership with the Museum of Craft and Design, and the museum provided craft kits for all participants who completed the 10-hour challenge. This year's craft kit is an embroidery craft to create the neon designs currently on display at the museum. This year, we also introduced spot art from our Summer Stride artist, Sandy Santamaria. Using art from our 2024 summer campaign created some aesthetic cohesion between the All Ages Summer Program and the Tween and Teen Winter Reading Program. We also had additional promotional messaging from SFUSD, which enticed our SFUSD students to participate, and we appreciate this additional promotion. I also want to name that Tween Winter Read is made possible through the funding from the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, and I want to extend my gratitude to the Friends on behalf of all of our happy prize winners from this year. Okay, so here are some highlights from this year's Tween Winter Read program. According to some feedback we've received from previous years, physical prizes are popular and remain relevant incentives for our adolescent patrons. So this year we continue to change, introduced in last year's Tween Winter Read. We shifted our raffle prizes to be big ticket prizes that are currently popular with our adolescent patrons. This year we offered headphones, gaming systems, and cameras. This year we also added additional lower value prizes for the top 25 participating locations in the system. We did so to increase the number of participants who would win a physical prize. This year, we also switched to in-person only signups and completions, and we did so to encourage patrons get to know their local library location. And this photo here is from Bayview. This is a good example of how creative our staff got in advertising Tween Winter Read to our patrons. Okay, so here are some results. As you can see, we had a hearty increase this year across all measures. And not only an increase, but we reached an all-time high across signups, finishers, and hours of participation. I want to send out another thank you to all of the promotional work from all of our partners and all of our library staff. And to close, I want to read you this participant's review. This is a great example of creative engagement with Tween Winter Read. This participant left us this very colorful drawing, as well as a written review inscribed in the frame that we provided. This participant's review says, reading lets you travel everywhere in this world and to so many other worlds, to meet so many people, to experience dying, living, friendship, falling in love countless times. Reading makes you stronger. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess. All right, our next presenter is Amanda Limkako, Adult Services Librarian at our Presidio Branch Library. Amanda is going to present on our recent screening of the documentary Free for All, the Public Library.
Good afternoon. Mike. Good afternoon. My name is Amanda, and I served as the co-lead along with Anissa Malady on SFPL's recent community screening of the forthcoming Independent Lens documentary, Free for All, the Public Library, which happened here at the Corrette Auditorium on Saturday, January 18th. For this screening, I did community outreach too and collaborated with local media organizations, KQED and Independent Lens. So about the film, it traces how public libraries have uniquely shaped democracy since the founding of the United States to today. The filmmakers spent a lot of time on this film, about 10 years. They went around the country visiting libraries and collecting personal stories. San Francisco Public Library actually bookends the film's opening, showing, as you can see in the image here, opening daily operations. And it serves as the film's closing with the celebration of libraries through our first Night of Ideas event. The film also highlights the challenges of operating public libraries now, including library closures, book bans, and heightened divisions among the public. To recap the event, it was an enthusiastic display of support for SFPL with over 300 attendees filling both the Corrette Auditorium and Latinx room here at Maine. The filmmakers, you'll see on the right side, Dawn Logson and Lucy Faulkner attended and introduced the film. And then following the screening, KQED senior editor Rachel Myro moderated an on-screen discussion with former city librarian Louise Herrera and Michael Lambert. They gave local context to some of the film's ideas and events, as well as answered questions from the audience, effectively making this event a public forum. Michael shared updates on library restoration projects at a Mission and Chinatown branches, illustrated concepts from the strategic plan, including cultural amplifier and resource providers, and ultimately conveyed that the library is, this is one of a quote that stuck with me, nonpartisan, but not neutral in the face of book bans. They also shared ways for direct action across the country through ALA's Unite Against Book Bans campaign and how to donate to Pacific Palisades Library following the recent wildfires. This post-screening discussion has been posted to the library's YouTube account. My own takeaways from this event were the strength of the library's relationships with community organizations and how we can amplify each other's missions. KQED and SFPL were both significant drivers of event outreach with a combined 800,000 plus email subscriber list, as well as social media promotions and radio promotions. There was an overwhelming response with registration sellout, although we didn't turn away anyone who wanted to attend that day. We were able to accommodate them. I would describe attendees as library superfans. People want to talk about libraries and know more about them, and I think there is more opportunity to capture impact stories here. Lastly, people love hearing from the library. With so many things competing for our attention, when the library asks for your time or wants to share something, people listen. This screening event was a unique way to create conversations around public libraries. In fact, in the lead up to the event, Boston Public Library reached out to us to see how they could host their own screening. For the last slide, I think we have the trailer for the film, but wanted to open it to questions. Okay, thank you.
Work for a government-funded information organization.
Yes, sir.
What kind of information do you give out?
Whatever they ask for.
The community messed up. They missed their opportunity to save something incredibly important.
Having that library to really pull us together into the community has been so helpful.
We're a place where people come together, and we need more of that in this country, not less of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. This documentary, I've seen it twice, and both times my eyes have welled up with tears of pride, and I highly recommend it. It was a phenomenal event. Well done, Amanda and Anissa. Sharing the stage with Luis, that is one of the highlights of my career. I'll always cherish that. It was a special day. Our next presenter is Allison Wyckoff, Director of Exhibitions. Oh, it's Megan. I am so sorry, Megan. Megan is going to tell us about a rad new exhibit that is going to debut next week. I can take no credit whatsoever.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everyone. As Michael said, I'm Megan Merritt, Senior Curator for Exhibitions here at SFPL, and I'm so thrilled to tell you about this new exhibition we have opening next week, titled Skateboarding San Francisco, Concrete Community Continuity. This is the first exhibition we've curated in-house, and we've partnered with a content expert named Ted Barrow. He's the guest curator for the show. He's also, of course, a skateboarder and an art historian. The exhibition is located right next door in Jewett Gallery and opens next Thursday evening, February 13th. We're going to have an opening reception from 5:30 to 7:30. I hope to see you all there if you can make it. The exhibition focuses on the built environment of San Francisco as a unique and vibrant global destination for skateboarding and traces the history of some of the most iconic skate spots in the world from the 80s to the present. It also celebrates the close-knit communities inherent to skateboarding while looking at the future of skateboarding in the city, especially right next door in UN Plaza. So in Jewett Gallery, we're going to feature, it's going to be a feast for the eyes. We have some archival photos from the San Francisco History Center, as well as from Thrasher Magazine, which is based here in San Francisco. Magazines from their collection, original artworks like paintings, skate decks featuring artist collaborations on the bottom left of the screen. You can see one between Chico Brenes, a skate pro, and the artist Jeremy Fish. And there's also materials from iconic and long-gone skate spots like the Embarcadero and Hubba Hideout. We'll also, of course, have skateboarding videos and a few surprises that you'll have to come to the gallery to see in person. In connection with this main exhibition in Jewett, we're also showcasing our diverse collection throughout the library in what we're calling satellite displays. Each satellite display connects to an overarching theme from the skateboarding show, such as celebrating subcultures and DIY or do-it-yourself culture, both of which are foundational to the ethos of San Francisco. On the 6th floor, we have an amazing exhibition that's now on view from the artist, skateboarder, and former SFPL employee, Margaret Kilgallen, whose name might ring a bell to some of you. She worked in the preservation department in the 1990s, and for the first time, we have a ton of her hand-painted signs on view, so definitely check that out. We've also enlarged the photo on the bottom right of your screen. We have that enlarged between the 5th and 6th floors, and it's really beautiful. We were just featured in Juxtaposed magazine for that. We are also featuring artworks and skate decks from the artist Felicia Gabaldon in the Stegner Environmental Center to coincide with the First Person Native American Heritage Celebration. And outside the MCC, we currently have a fun display of the children's book, My First Skateboard, which is curated by the local skateboarder Carl Watson. On the 5th The fifth floor, we're showcasing some iconic issues of Thrasher magazine, which the library has been collecting since 1992. And on the third floor in the Hormel LGBTQIA Center and on the sixth floor in Skylight Gallery, we're showcasing an assortment of zines. We have a big collection of zines. In Hormel, we're going to have queer zines from the 90s from various collections. And in Skylight, we're showing zines ranging from the 1960s to the present that celebrate the DIY spirit of underground art movements. Also in the AMR, the Arts, Music, and Recreation Center on the fourth floor, we'll be displaying vinyl records which were chosen by local skateboarders and feature quotes by them talking about why the music was inspiring to them. As I mentioned earlier, our opening reception is next Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30, so mark your calendars. Next Saturday, we're also having an in-gallery tour with Ted Barrow. He's featured on the top left of the screen. In that photo, he's giving a tour for Thrasher magazine. And in late February, we're hosting a series of skate, rock, roll, read activations on Fulton Plaza. There'll be 3 of those total, and those will be featuring live performances, hands-on creative activities, and community-based resources for youth and families. In March, we're screening skateboarding films every Thursday at noon right here in Corrette Auditorium, and in April, we'll be hosting a poetry and storytelling program with the author Jose Vadi, as well as a second TED Tour. In June, we're having another TED Tour, which takes us in and outside the building. He's going to be touring Jewett Gallery and also taking folks to Civic Center, or UN Plaza, rather. And as you walked into Corrette Auditorium this afternoon, you could not have missed the bold and colorful characters designed by Marby Miller, who's pictured here. Marby is a Bay Area-based artist and skateboarder who often collaborates with local skateboarding companies like Deluxe, also a San Francisco company, to produce skate decks and clothing. We commissioned Marby to design an inviting entryway that would lead visitors to the gallery. An important theme in the exhibition is also community and artists collaborating with skateboarding brands to create unique designs. One of Marby's decks is featured in the exhibition, and we also have her interview, which was filmed by our media services team right here at the public library. I hope I've enticed you all to come to our opening reception next week, where you'll be able to see some amazing artworks and iconic skate spots up close. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you, Megan.
you.
And I want to commend you and the team for really leaning into our new strategic plan, infusing the spirit of San Francisco into our work, amplifying the culture of San Francisco. I am super stoked. All right, our final presenter this evening is our Chief Operating Officer, Maureen Singleton, with some personnel news.
Thank you, Michael, and good evening, commissioners and members of the public and my library colleagues. I am very excited tonight to make the official announcement that we have appointed our new library CIO, Jason Blandon. Jason has worked for SFPL for over 10 years, holding various roles throughout the IT department or division, and most recently, over the last 2 years, was our acting CIO while we did the long and laborious and torturous recruitment process. Before joining the library, he was a vocational IT instructor with the Department of Public Health and has also worked in the nonprofit arena. Jason was born and raised in San Francisco. His branch library was the Mission Branch Library, and he admits that he is an avid science fiction fan. As CIO, he's going to oversee cybersecurity, desktop help, network servers, storage, audiovisual services, and web services. His team is his #1 fan, and he is well respected in the city IT network. We are grateful that Jason took on this role, and we look forward to the future that he will co-create with his team and his colleagues here at the San Francisco Public Library. I also want to take this moment to thank all of the IT staff for the great, amazing work they do on a daily basis to help us provide great services to the public including the Library Commission meeting. So with that, yes, exactly. Congratulations, Jason, and please share a few words with us.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. I'm honored to serve as the Chief Information Officer for here San Francisco Public Library. I will be focusing on leveraging technology to enhance access and innovation while focusing also, I'm saying focusing twice, sorry, while focusing also on equity and inclusion. Right? I look forward to working with all of you in our support of the library and the community. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jason. Thank you for stepping up. And I also want to thank our Vice President Wong for helping us out on this recruitment as well, serving on the panel. And that concludes the City Librarian's report.
Thank you very much, City Librarian Lambert, and to our presenters, Jess, Amanda, Megan, and congratulations, Jason, on the appointment. You're stuck with us now. Thank you again also to the all of the library staff that worked on this incredible range of programming that we always get to hear about. We very, very much appreciate your input and your creativity and your commitment to culture and community and just bringing kind of new ideas to life. Before we move to commission discussion on the City Librarian's report, we'll first open public comment. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific agenda item. Public comment is now open in the Correct.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. Speaking as an anonymous citizen, of course, and stop the hate, stop the ignorance. Don't give money to the Friends of the Library. Don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. It is, in fact, very profound that you're motivated to inhibit public comment to the extent of a narrow imposing or attempting to impose your narrow definition of relevancy, which is universally recognized as one of the sleaziest tactics to inhibit democracy. I was very impressed by this report. Presumably, since it's the city librarian's report, things that he has not brought up are also relevant. Has there been any mention of the Furman Fund? That took place under your tenure. There's been no report from the city librarian on what's happened to it. I hope you have not had an illegal seriatim meeting on the subject. I was entranced by the documentary about the libraries being free for all. And the mention of the speaker in the film about libraries should be a place where we can all come together. God, I wish that were true. You must have grinned with disparagement when that part came up. I'm anxious to see it myself so I can find out the sentimental versions. I'm interested in the tween thing. There's a gap of 10 years between 10 and 18, and I guess my time is up.
Thank you very much. Further public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. Thanks very much for having these reports. It's always good to hear aspects of what's going on. Let me say that free-for-all troubled me in a number of ways with respect, number one, to access and with respect to the content. It looked as though online any kind of information about this in general required a ticket, and the tickets were controlled by KQED and required providing an email address, and I believe there were some additional demographics that they wanted. That should not be necessary. A person, anybody should be able to come without presenting any kind of qualifications. Then when I came a couple of days before to see what the situation was, it said all full, no more tickets. Meanwhile, at the actual program, they took people without regard for tickets and put them in the overflow room, so they didn't really have tickets that were worth anything. And presumably there were some people who just simply showed up and at least were able to go to the overflow room. There was no it's a lovely movie. I'm glad there's some publicity and discussion about libraries and library issues. That's very important, certainly as someone who values libraries in general and library services and what a library is. But it's not free for everybody. And I think, for example, the exclusion of the homeless, which were particularly targeted in the cutoff of Wi-Fi at the Harvey Milk Eureka Valley branch, is a shameful incident of not cutting books, but cutting out people who even more than other people may need that access. And electronic access is not equal for those who don't have or can't afford or don't.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing that there's none, public comment is now closed, and we move to the commission discussion on item number 4. Commissioners. Commissioner Lomax Garrett-Dutzy.
I'll just very quickly follow up with what my fellow Commissioner Pete had said. This was a really lovely report, and the thing that I think that really touched me was actually the tween winter read, and then the percentage increase, the number increase. That really is wonderful. So Jess, thank you for all the work that you're doing in that work, because that really does make a difference in families. The imagination of what the library does, and the tween years, as we know, is really important, formative years of young people. But I want to thank everyone, but I just also wanted to shout out to Jess. That was really special for me.
Commissioner Lopez.
The reports were amazing. Thank you, Jess. I liked I'm going to echo what Commissioner Gertrude said. Amanda, thank you so much. I still have not seen the documentary, but looking forward to. And Megan, I think that one of the things that I really appreciate from this report is that it's very diverse in themes, on ages, and it covers like such a rich history of many things, not just San Francisco, but history of libraries and the quote that you read for the student, that really resonates why we do what we do. So thank you. I feel like we are proud of our programming and our libraries. You're all doing an amazing job. And then Jason, congratulations. It's going to be an exciting position, and we're going to be waiting for your reports.
Seeing there's no further comment from the commission, I just wanted to extend our thanks again to the presenters and the library staff for all of their hard work. Thank you very much. We're now going to turn to item number 5, which is adjournment in memory of Elaine Kahn. City Librarian Lambert.
Thank you, Vice President Wong. I appreciate this opportunity to pay tribute to our late Council of Neighborhood Libraries member, Elaine Kahn. There are copies of her updated obituary in the back of the room for anybody that would like a copy. As noted in her obituary, Elaine Beryl Douglas Kahn died peacefully at home on January 9th, 2025. She was surrounded by family. She was 102 and 5 1/2 months old. Elaine loved to read, and she loved books. She often recounted an early memory in her hometown of Delta, Utah, at a very young age, sitting on a curb outside the local library reading a book. She moved to San Francisco from New York City in 1956. She obtained 2 master's degrees, English and anthropology. For over 20 years, circa 1970s to 1990s, she published a newsletter, Food Talk, in which she researched and wrote about the cultural anthropology of food. Julia Child, Simone Beck, Narcé David, and Nabisco were among her subscribers. In later years, she worked as a program officer for the State Department's International Diplomacy Council, combining research, editing, and her love of cultures and international travel. Her career as a research editor and editor in its many forms spanned her life. Books and reading remain central throughout her long life. She often said that the Richmond District Library was her favorite destination. She served on the neighborhood committee for the library's Edition project. Across 3 decades, she served as the Richmond District Library's representative for the San Francisco Council of Neighborhood Libraries. She loved it. Elaine's commitment and dedication through decades of service to the San Francisco Public Library System was born of her love of reading, books, and lifelong learning, which continued throughout her long life until her death. She will be missed by all of us at the San Francisco Public Library, and we thank her for her invaluable contributions as a library advocate over the years. She made a tremendous difference. Commissioners, I appreciate your consideration of adjourning today's meeting in memory of Elaine Kahn.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed, I'm requesting everyone check their phones and silence any phones that might be ringing. Just to minimize disruptions. Thank you very much. Before we move to commission discussion and action, we'll first open public comment on this item. As a reminder, please limit your public comment to this specific agenda item, and public comment is now open in the CRET.
Library Commissioners, my name is Tara Khan Architecture, and I first want to thank you, Michael, for such kind words. My mother, Elaine Kahn, did not want much fuss made about her after her death. She was modest about her many accomplishments and talents, understated and elegant to the core. She used few words to convey much, but she often proclaimed, "The library is my favorite destination." And she used to say with fervor, "The public library is the greatest public institution ever invented." She believed in it like nothing else. Thank you for honoring her today.
Thank you very much. Further public comment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rebecca Alcala, Chief of Branches, CNL Facilitator, fan of Elaine Kahn, who joined CNL before I joined SFPL, and was with us in our meetings up until just a few months ago. I want to thank Tara for being that person who would assist her mom to join us. I think one of the things that I feel very proud of in the branches is a sense of community that we build. And Elaine's presence with us, I think, is a testament to just how strong those communities are. Our Richmond branch managers have always known Elaine, welcomed her to the open houses, to the branch, to checking out material, and her contributions to CNL will be remembered as someone who was a stalwart advocate of libraries and specifically the Richmond branch, because she was very proud of that. So I'm happy to be adjourning in her honor. I am sad of her passing, but feel very fortunate that she was a part of our organization in this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further public comment.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. Speaking as an anonymous citizen, of course. And stop the hate, stop the ignorance, don't give money to the Friends of the Library, don't accept money from the Friends of the Library. I was gratified and thankful for this agenda item, both specifically and in general. I read her in memoriam, and her career intersected with mine in a number of ways, but I have to confess, I don't remember her. Perhaps she doesn't remember me. Who knows? One of the things that was most gratifying was her love of words. That is what it's about, after all. Not just books, not just places to congregate, not bringing us all together, but the words that really do that. In general, I'm gratified that you've put this and similar things on the agenda now. Recently, we adjourned in memory of Larry Ware. Before that, we adjourned in memory of Marcia Popper. For a long time before that, we were not doing that. Over the course of the last few years, Mig Mayer, Gladys Hanson, Joanna Goldschmidt, Dr. Ray Richardson all passed away without being recognized by this Library Commission. And one of the things that's been taught to us from our history is that not only are we who we are because of who we were collectively, but who we were individually. And we should honor that in all circumstances. It's a situation where the importance of what we do should reflect on the importance of what they did. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment in the Correct.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Thank you for this. First of all, I certainly agree with adjourning in her honor. I did not know her personally, nor her work. You mentioned that this was a revised description. I hadn't previously seen her direct connection with the library as an active participant. Assumed it had to do with the Council of Neighborhood Libraries, which I see on the second page is described here. I think it would be helpful if perhaps somebody who knows when she served to keep in mind when those years were, especially for the folks that may have worked for her and or appreciated what she had done or knew her, so they would know, yeah, that overlaps my time in the body or at the library in some fashion. As I've said before, I'd like for you not to adjourn until you insist on having an item on the agenda that you used to have, and as well as many places do have, which is to put on the agenda to say what you would like on future agenda items. As I say, as you've done before, and as many bodies still do. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the comment. Any further public comment here in Correct? Seeing that there's none, we'll move to commission discussion and action on this item. First, I just wanted to extend our thank you to everyone who had commented on this item, and to Elaine's family for being here. We deeply appreciate the opportunity to adjourn in her honor. Commissioners, I respectfully request a motion to adjourn in memory of Elaine Kahn.
I'd like to, for us to adjourn in the memory of Elaine Kahn, a long-time both patron of the San Francisco Public Library and a remarkable citizen to the communities in which she served.
We have a motion from Commissioner Lomax-Garrett-Utsi.
I'd like to second it, and I'd like to also thank the family for sharing her with us and having her be part of the CNL.
Motion seconded by Commissioner Ono.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax-Garrett-Utsi.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.